George Washington was one of the most important leaders in the history of the United States. He is often called the father of the nation because he played a key role in the birth of the country and in shaping its early government. His life story is about duty, courage, discipline, and service. He did not seek power for personal glory, but he accepted responsibility when his people needed him. His leadership during war and peace set an example that later leaders tried to follow. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He was born into a family of landowners who were not extremely rich but were respected in their community. His father, Augustine Washington, owned plantations and enslaved people, which was common in Virginia at that time. George's mother, Mary Ball Washington, was strong and strict, and she had a great influence on his character. When George was only 11 years old, his father died. This event changed his life because he could no longer receive a formal education in England, as some wealthy boys did. Instead, he learned practical skills at home. Washington's early education was simple. He studied reading, writing, basic math, and geography. He was especially interested in mathematics and land measurement. As a teenager, he trained as a surveyor, which was an important job in colonial America. Surveyors measured land, created maps, and helped settle property disputes. This work allowed Washington to travel through the wilderness and understand the land of Virginia and nearby areas. It also helped him earn money and build connections with powerful people. From a young age, Washington learned self-discipline, responsibility, and hard work. As a young man, Washington wanted to become a soldier. At that time, Britain controlled the American colonies, and the colonies were involved in conflicts with France and Native American tribes over land. In 1753, when Washington was only 21 years old, he was sent on a dangerous mission by the governor of Virginia. His task was to warn the French to leave territory claimed by Britain. This mission failed, but it showed Washington's courage and loyalty. Soon after, he joined the Virginia militia and became involved in the French and Indian War. The French and Indian War was difficult and costly. Washington faced many challenges and made some mistakes, especially early in his military career. In one famous incident, his forces were defeated at Fort Necessity. However, Washington learned important lessons from these experiences. He learned about leadership, military strategy, and the dangers of underestimating an enemy. Over time, he gained respect as a brave and determined officer. By the end of the war, he was a well-known figure in Virginia. After the war, Washington returned to civilian life. He married a wealthy widow named Martha Dandridge Custis in 1759. Martha brought great wealth to the marriage, including land and enslaved people. Together, George and Martha lived at Mount Vernon, a large plantation along the Potomac River. Washington became a successful planter and landowner. He managed his estate carefully and experimented with new farming methods. He also became involved in local politics and was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, the colony's governing assembly. During this time, tensions between the American colonies and Britain began to grow. Britain imposed new taxes and laws on the colonies to pay for debts from wars. Many colonists felt these taxes were unfair because they had no representatives in the British Parliament. Washington at first hoped problems could be solved peacefully, but over time he became more critical of British policies. He believed that the colonies deserved greater rights and freedoms. By the early 1770s, relations between Britain and the colonies had become very serious. Protests, boycotts, and conflicts increased. In 1774, Washington was chosen as a delegate to the First Continental Congress, a meeting of colonial leaders to discuss their response to British actions. The next year, fighting broke out between British troops and colonial militias at Lexington and Concord. These battles marked the beginning of the American Revolutionary War. In 1775, the Second Continental Congress met in Philadelphia. The colonies needed a leader to command their army against Britain, which was the strongest military power in the world. George Washington was chosen as the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. He did not ask for the position, but he accepted it out of a sense of duty. He refused to take a salary and instead accepted payment only for his expenses. This showed his commitment to the cause rather than personal gain. Leading the Continental Army was extremely difficult. The army lacked proper training, supplies, and money. Many soldiers were farmers who served for short periods and then went home. The British Army, on the other hand, was well-trained and well-equipped. Washington faced many defeats and hardships, but he never gave up. his greatest strength was not always winning battles, but keeping the army together and maintaining hope. One of the most famous moments of the war was Washington's crossing of the Delaware River in December 1776. After suffering several losses, Washington planned a surprise attack on British and German troops in Trenton, New Jersey. On a cold winter night, Washington and his soldiers crossed the icy river. The next morning, they won a major victory. This success lifted the spirits of the army and the colonists. It showed that the American cause was still alive. The war continued for several more years. Washington faced many challenges, including lack of support from Congress, harsh winters, and internal disagreements. The winter at Valley Forge in 1777 to 1778 was especially difficult. Soldiers suffered from cold, hunger, and disease. Despite these hardships, Washington worked to improve the army. With help from leaders like Baron von Steuben, the soldiers received better training and discipline. Washington also understood the importance of allies. The support of France was crucial to the American victory. French troops, money, and naval power helped turn the tide of the war. In 1781, American and French forces trapped the British Army under General Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. After a long siege, the British surrendered. This battle effectively ended the war, although a peace treaty was signed later in 1783. After the war, Washington did something very important and unusual. Instead of trying to keep power, he resigned as commander-in-chief of the army and returned to Mount Vernon. At that time, many leaders in history had used military success to become kings or dictators. Washington chose a different path. By giving up power, he showed his strong belief in republican government, where leaders serve the people and do not rule by force. The new United States now faced the challenge of building a strong and fair government. The first system, called the Articles of Confederation, created a very weak national government. It could not collect taxes or enforce laws effectively. Washington was worried that the country might fall apart. In 1787, he agreed to attend the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Although he did not speak often during the meetings, his presence added respect and unity to the process. The Constitutional Convention produced the United States Constitution, which created a stronger federal government with 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. When the Constitution was approved, the next step was to choose the country's first president. George Washington was the clear choice. In 1789, he was unanimously elected as the first president of the United States. Washington's presidency was a time of great responsibility and difficulty. There was no guidebook for how a president should act. Washington had to set many precedents or examples that future presidents would follow. He carefully balanced power and avoided acting like a king. He formed a cabinet of advisors, including Thomas Jefferson as Secretary of State and Alexander Hamilton as Secretary of the Treasury. One of the biggest challenges Washington faced was managing disagreements within his own government. Hamilton and Jefferson had very different ideas about the future of the country. Hamilton supported a strong national government and a powerful financial system. Jefferson believed in states' rights and an economy based on farming. Washington often tried to stay neutral. But these disagreements led to the formation of political parties, something Washington did not like. Another major challenge was foreign policy. The United States was caught between powerful European nations, especially Britain and France, which were at war with each other. Many Americans supported France because of their help during the Revolutionary War. Washington believed that the young nation should remain neutral and avoid foreign conflicts. In 1793, he issued the Proclamation of Neutrality, which kept the United States out of the war. This decision helped protect the country from unnecessary danger. Washington also had to deal with internal problems. One important event was the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794. Farmers in western Pennsylvania protested a federal tax on whiskey. Some of the protests became violent. Washington believed that the government must enforce its laws, so he sent troops to stop the rebellion. This showed that the new federal government had the strength to maintain order, but it also demonstrated Washington's careful use of power. After serving 2 terms as president, Washington decided not to run again. This was another important example he set. At a time when leaders often stayed in power for life, Washington stepped down voluntarily. This peaceful transfer of power became one of the strongest traditions of American democracy. In his farewell address, Washington warned the nation about the dangers of political parties and foreign alliances. His words continued to influence the country long after his presidency. After leaving office in 1797, Washington returned to Mount Vernon. He hoped to live quietly, but he remained concerned about the future of the nation. He continued to manage his plantation and correspond with leaders. In December 1799, George Washington became seriously ill after being exposed to cold weather. Despite medical treatment, he died on December 14, 1799, at the age of 67. Washington's death shocked and saddened the nation. People across the United States and even in Europe honored him as a great leader. He was praised not just for winning a war or leading a government, but for his character. He valued honesty, self-control, and service. Although he owned enslaved people for much of his life, a serious moral failure, he later expressed discomfort with slavery and ordered that his enslaved people be freed after Martha's death. This shows the complexity and contradictions of his life. Today, George Washington is remembered in many ways. The nation's capital, Washington, D.C., is named after him. His image appears on currency, monuments, and schools. Mount Vernon is preserved as a historical site. Historians study his decisions, strengths, and weaknesses to better understand the early years of the United States. In simple terms, George Washington's greatness came from his ability to lead without seeking personal power. He knew when to act and when to step aside. He understood that the success of a nation depends not only on laws and armies, but on the character of its leaders. His life teaches the importance of responsibility, humility, and dedication to the common good. Because of these qualities, George Washington remains one of the most respected leaders in history.